Welcome to Across the Apothecary, where we discuss health, chat with health professionals, and try to figure out if bacon is really bad for you. Good morning and welcome to Across the Desk. I am here today with Christie Ellinger.
Hello.
Christie is an entrepreneur. She's a ballsy chick, and she has been the owner and operator of Dynamic Body. I'm going to say this wrong. I always get it wrong. Dynamic Body and Fitness.
Health and fitness.
I always miss that part. And it's very healthy in here. In Waterdown-on-Mill Street for 8 years?
6 years here.
6 years here.
2 years at home.
Man.
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. So that's a pretty cool journey. So tell me about you. I know about you. Christie and I have worked together before. But tell me about you.
What would you like to know?
But your background.
My background.
Your background is not what people would expect.
Yeah. A lot of people... Well, I've been teaching Pilates for the last 8 years. And that was a new career for me. It was a career change.
Yeah.
I started out actually working in environmental management.
But tell them where, because that's the really...
Where? Well, I did have a job at a place in Milton called Carmax Heavy Stamping. It's a Magna company, and I was the environmental coordinator there for almost 6.5 years. Before that, I was in consulting, environmental consulting, so I traveled a lot, mainly within the automotive industry. So, you know...
That's right. It's such a disparate... And the weird thing is, when you and I first met and started talking, my husband worked at Carmax.
Yeah.
For 2.5 years, and then we were trying to establish if there was any overlap there. And I went home and like, do you know, Christie, she was your environmental person.
Yeah, I think we
came
figured out
the dates were after. Yeah,
he came after. Yeah, so I've been fully self-employed since August 2009.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah.
You look like you had a light bulb moment there. Yes?
Yeah.
No?
No.
Just realizing how far time flies.
Realizing how much time has passed. I can't believe it's been that long.
That's crazy, eh?
It is a little crazy.
In a good way. It's a good crazy.
Yeah, of course. It's always a crazy.
Well.
At least for me, it's always been kind of a good crazy for the most part.
I think, we talked about it briefly before, that as an entrepreneur, you always, and I don't know if it's different for men and women. I don't know. Men are a little weird, but women tend to internalize a lot of the stress that comes from being an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I think society does entrepreneurs a disservice because who they profile are the big, flashy, Arlene Dickinsons, and not negative to her at all. But those huge success stories, and they don't ever really talk about, from what I've seen anyway, the complete BS that goes on behind the scenes, where you are staying up at night and stressing and trying to make it all work. So tell me, here's one question that I usually do ask. Tell me about you as a little girl.
Me as a little girl.
Yeah.
Well, I was an only child, so I had to be really creative with keeping myself occupied. More especially when it was around holiday seasons, because that's when your friends aren't around, right? Because they're with their families. Yeah, and my mom and dad did not live close to the rest of our family. Yeah, we were always minimum hour and a half drive away, if not longer. And I ended up going to 5 different elementary schools as a kid, so we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So I, unfortunately, I have some friends and family members who have had friends since like grade 3.
Yeah.
And because I moved around so much in elementary school, I wasn't able to do that. You try and keep up the relationship after without writing letters and phone calls. Oh, let's do a sleepover next month, but you all go your own way, which I've come to learn as growing into adulthood. There's a reason.
Normal part of passage.
It's a normal part of life, and there is a reason why people come into your life and also out of your life.
Very true.
Very
true.
I was pretty creative as a kid. Luckily, I grew up being exposed to the outdoors. My grandparents had a cottage up north, so we spent many weekends and many weeks up there, fishing.
Because you and your husband are always going off kayaking and backpacking.
I wish it was more. This year we haven't even been in our boat, so we haven't
either. We have a huge blue canoe, like a big King Kong canoe. It has not hit the water yet.
Yeah, but I've just been so busy with work and going through the transition that I'm going through right now that I've just been focusing on that And once that's put into place, then I'm going to have some time to play and to have some fun.
That sounds like the smile on your face is so nice, right? Because you're like, fun time.
Yeah, me time. So yeah, I grew up with an appreciation for the outdoors. Like one of my idols always has been David Suzuki, watching Sunday night nature things. CBC. So I've been called a tree hugger, but I'm not. I mean, I was an environmental coordinator in the automotive industry.
You give the tree a pat.
Yeah, well, it's learning to...
A friendly high five.
It's learning to live with kind of a balance and an appreciation. We're part of our environment. When we manage environmental things, it's also managing people.
Yeah.
And our impact. Everything is interconnected.
Yeah.
So I still do have a huge connection to the environment and nature. That's just part of me, which I appreciate, because a lot of people don't have that. And I always find it amazing when somebody's never been camping or somebody's never been fishing. I still meet people that have never done anything like that. And I don't know, when I meet people like that, it makes me realize how fortunate I was growing up, that I had access to that, and I had family that enjoyed the outdoors and exposed me to it, and encouraged me, and to the point where I went to university for environmental studies. I wanted to make a career out of that.
See, it's interesting because we only camped, I can only recall anyway, camping with my family once. But it was when I went to Girl Guides and we went tent camping that I started to enjoy it. And then when our kids were born, of course we couldn't afford big fancy vacations, but we still wanted to go places and do things with them.
Yeah, for sure. You want to have a life and expose your kids to things, right?
Well, now my kids can, and it's interesting because I was a Girl Guide leader for 6-7 years. Interesting sidebar that I was actually encouraged not to go back for my 3rd year for Girl Guides. I'm like, we're not quite sure that you fit with us. I'm like, wow, you're harshing my buzz.
That's a downer at that age.
They kept telling me my knots were wrong, and I really wanted to tell them what to do with their knots. And I think they strongly sensed my antipathy towards their, criticism of my knots. Because I'd be like, you know what? It's holding together. Does it really matter how it happens? Well, no, you have to. Anyway.
It does actually matter. Especially when you want to put a tarp up and it's pouring rain and you don't want it to fall down on you. Knots kind of important.
Well, in retrospect, 30 years later, I get it. And as a leader now, that's my phone rant. I get it now, but I took my kids camping a lot, and ended up, by the time they were 10 or 11, they could, and both of them had been in scouting and guiding, they could scout the site, get their tent between the two of them, set it up, do whatever they needed to do. And a few years later, of course, I was also taking 30 girls camping. So helping all of them do all their stuff. And
that must have been fun.
It honestly was. It honestly was. I mean, when I got home, I was completely exhausted. But the number of girls that came who had never set up their own tent, who had never done any kind of anything, right, was really rewarding. And I know now for the rest of their life, they will have the confidence to go camping, set up their tent. They know not to go in a lowland, all those kinds of things.
Or even if they don't continue to do that in their life, at least they had a moment where they felt empowered to do something.
Exactly.
And they learned something new that was a skill, and whether you continue to use that skill or not, you learned how to do something different than what a lot of people can do. And that's definitely a confidence builder. I was a Girl Guide too, so.
I bet you didn't get asked not to come back.
No, actually, it's funny when you tell your story about knots. I have a story about knots.
Knot it up.
I was, for whatever reason, one of my Girl Guide leaders, she was an older woman, probably in her, I want to say late 50s or early 60s. Yeah. And
she may have been 35, but just looked like that after being a leader for 5 years.
But her name was Mrs. Humphreys, and she was really kind. And for whatever reason, for probably about a month, when it came to doing, the group activity, which was usually crafts and stuff, and I was not much of an artsy person. Like I can sketch and like from a photo and stuff, but not really artsy. And I guess she tuned into that, and she pulled me aside for several weeks, and just her and me, we would work on knots.
Oh, that's so nice. But see, that's what Girl Guides is about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very
She
cool.
recognized that, the artsy thing wasn't for me, and she pulled me aside and taught me knots, and I don't remember what those knots are to this day, but I remember that support and her being there, and recognizing that this this girl a little bit different,
needs something different. It's just not your
not my thing. And I think too, I've always been a learner. I've always wanted to learn. I've always been inquisitive, asking questions. Well, how does that work? Well, okay, how that works, I get that, but why? And you ask the why 5 times. Yeah. I was like that just back then. So I think...
I don't think that's changed.
No.
Let's be honest. Yeah. That's very cool. And it's interesting because I think those kinds of experiences then give you either the confidence or I don't even know how else to explain it, but, well, I did that, so why can't I do this? Mm-hmm. Right? And that's what I went through when I was becoming an entrepreneur was, well, I did all these things. Mm-hmm. Like I went to Europe when I was 15 on my own, and well, I stayed with family and stuff, but I did the trip. And on its own, not actually a big deal, right? Because you're you're cared for along the way. You even get a little tag, or you used to anyway, attached to you that said, minor traveling alone or whatever. Mm-hmm. And those stewardesses, flight attendants, always looking out for you. But my dad asked me what I wanted for my 15th birthday. Mm-hmm. I said, I want to go to England. He said, okay, you need to save your pocket money, this. My parents put it together with my relatives. Ended up with 3 weeks? Might have been 2 weeks in France with my aunt and uncle and those families. So
nice. That's awesome.
It was completely awesome. And now my daughter's like, yes, the wind's mine coming.
It's like a rite of passage in your family.
All right, we'll figure that out. But it's never occurred to me not to try. It's never occurred to me that not to try. That's all I can on the not theme, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we know now that you've got a really cool transition from working in automobile industry, which is, not very bendy, to then transitioning into, and I loved you said about balance. Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting thing because you were trying to have, within the auto industry, balance between what they have to produce and create and their impact on the earth. I mean, not in a touchy-feely way, but there's going to be byproducts.
Realistically, you have, depending
waste
what your production process is, you've got air emissions, you've got water emissions, both to sanitary, and if you have, water processing on site, potentially stormwater, depending on your property, and that was an issue where I worked. And you've got waste, both, non-hazardous, so your regular stuff that goes in the garbage, your blue bin recycling, in addition to your industrial waste and hazardous waste. Exactly. There's all kinds of things, and that's to the outside environment, then also inside. I worked in a heavy stamping plant, but we also had robotic welding assembly. So there's, internal air emissions and everything else too, which goes more to the health and safety side, but it's your work environment. It's still air that you have to breathe. It's still balance. So, my job was just to basically make sure that what we were doing not only conformed to the environmental laws and regulations, both on the provincial and federal level, but also within our corporate structure, because CarMax is a Magna company. They have corporate environmental
mandates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, it was making sure, and that goes well above beyond just regulatory. That's, this getting into the sustainability and environmental stewardship. Right. So, when
corporate responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I tend to do that when I'm researching companies for potential jobs and what have you. I try and have a look at their corporate responsibility. Yeah. Hopefully they've published it. And if you haven't published it, people look for that stuff.
Exactly.
But it's interesting that within that role, it was about balance. And then you transitioned into balance, right? So where you are now helping people through Pilates and through yoga and what have you, find balance. So that always seems to be a bit of a theme with what you like to do. Aha moment. There you go. Just for you.
Aha moment.
So you transition from CarMax, come into and create Dynamic Body Health, and I'm still saying it wrong. There's too many words.
Just call it Dynamic Body.
Okay, that works. So what made you decide to do that transition? Because that is a big leap from a corporate employee into an entrepreneur. So tell me about that.
Well, as much as I enjoyed what I did, being an environmental coordinator, it kind of got to the point where I got bored, to be honest, with what I was doing. When I started my job, they didn't have an environmental person. The health and safety person was doing the job, which is pretty common. It's environment, health, and safety. And as much as that person was doing the best that they could with the resources they had, the situation wasn't good. They didn't have an environmental management system really put into place. So my job was to get things.
This is very delicate right now. Sorry. I have to switch legs because we're sitting on a Pilates trainer. What is it called?
It's a reformer.
Sorry, a Pilates reformer.
Yes.
So I'm
with a mat converter, so it doesn't move.
We are all over the place.
Yeah.
But I'm not as bendy as I used to be.
So when I started, it was great because I was busy. I figured out over the years that I'm very project oriented. I love to have a goal. Yeah. I love to put things in place and see it, succeed and do well. But when it comes down the road to maintaining it's great. You have to and always grow.
Boring as watching paint dry.
But it can be. And I found, my manager was really good and open to new ideas. Yeah. But when it came to upper management, it was always bottom line. I could have taken the company further into sustainability, but when it comes to, capital expense and investment, they want return on investment in 12 to 15 months. Well, when it comes to things like energy management and you have to spend a little bit of money, where over time, if your energy bill is $4 million and, you need to spend maybe $20,000 so you can save over 2 or 3 years, then why wouldn't you do it? But, on paper, it doesn't work that way at that level in most companies, which is really unfortunate. So I got to the point where, I went and got training to be an internal trainer. I developed internal training programs, internal auditing, spill response, all that stuff. So I developed all these skills, and that's kind of where I learned I like teaching. I really loved training people.
Yeah.
And then over that time that I was there at CarMax, I'd become a spin instructor, which is indoor cycling. Because my husband and I were cyclists at the time, both mountain biking and road cycling. So
you do realize that when I hear like spin whatever thingies that
you think like spinning wheel like wool?
No. I involuntarily pull away and there's nothing about that appeals to me. Yeah, which could explain my unbendy situation.
Maybe,
but,
not so much. But it was through just becoming a spinning instructor for something fun to do, where it made me realize what kind of impact I could actually have on somebody's life directly. So, what I did in the environmental field is I wanted to have a positive impact on the world. Right. I want to contribute, in a positive way and do something good. Mm-hmm. But I found in my environmental job, I kind of got stuck. And, when you learn how things work in the corporate side of things, sometimes you realize, okay, well, it's not as
unstuckable as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And nothing's ever easy. Things can be simple, and there's always hurdles and to overcome and opportunities for improvement. Yeah. But I just found in when I started teaching and I got that feedback from my friends who were competing saying, hey, spin class this winter was awesome. My first race out, I did much better than I did last year. And it helped me realize that I was actually having a positive one-on-one impact on somebody. Yeah. And I was like,
on their fitness goals and their personal life and the whole.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that really interested me. So then I got to the point where I wanted to learn something else that would complement cycling. So I did explore yoga and Pilates and a couple other things. And Pilates just clicked with me. So I went and got my mat training. And when I was done that, I'm like, well, I know I want to teach, but I'm not sure if I want to go teach in a gym. So I decided, well, maybe I'll just try like a small class at home. So I started with one class with 3 people in my basement that was renovated specifically to be a studio, dedicated studio space. It was, professional looking and whatnot. And so I started off with 3 people, for 8 weeks. The next 8 weeks I had 2 classes full with 4 people in each. And then the next 8 weeks, I had, 4 classes a week. And this is in the evenings, for something fun to do. And then at that time, it was 2008, 2009, where the economy took a dive. And, layoffs, first people to go, environmental coordinator.
Because you're deemed unnecessary, which is so frightening.
Exactly. So it kind of, the times that I was laid off, 2-3 week periods here and there over a 6-month period, I was teaching at home, like 5-6 classes a week. And I'm like, hey, this would be kind of like what it's like to work for myself. Could I grow it? And being in the small town that I'm in, I was one of 2 people offering Pilates, but I was really offering more of a traditional Pilates with small group, not 20 people in a class. Yeah. I only had 4 people in a class.
And did you have your reformers at that time? This was strictly mat.
Yeah. Through that year that I was teaching mat at home, I then started my reformer training. Which
I loved. I took one of Christie's classes, and
isn't it awesome?
Honestly,
it's amazing.
If I had more ambition around exercise, which I'm recognizing now, I'm gonna backtrack for just a moment. There was a video on Facebook by Amuleto, and I haven't gone forward with it, but it was about assessing regret at the end of your life. And my mom had posted it, and she asked me about it or whatever, and I looked at her and said, you know what, quite honestly, if I were to go tomorrow, I don't have any regrets. Because I've tried my businesses, I've been fortunate to get married, have my kids, travel, I've generally lived a decent life. I don't have anybody that I have restitution that I have to make to.
Yep.
I've lived in a giving way and all that, feel good stuff. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but I've never lived a selfish life. So I've always been a volunteer. I've always given back to the community because that's part of what drives me. So I said to her, I don't have any regrets. Car hits me tomorrow. There's no hanging around ghosty like for me. They're like, I've intentionally written a ton for my kids. Because when my dad died, I still have nothing that tells me about who he was outside of being my dad. Which that's not a regret. I can't change it, right? So for my kids, one of the reasons I blog, one of the reasons I write, is so that they will have those glimpses and those things for the rest of their life. And so I'm like, okay, so I fixed that. So basically, daddy issues. Anything that my dad didn't do as far as providing a legacy, if you will, I've corrected. Because that's the only thing that's really bugged me. But then I got home and I started thinking, because my mom's health is not fantastic, and it just is what it is. It's not a blame or a whatever. That would be a regret. If I got to the end of my life and I didn't take charge of my health now, that would be a regret. Because I will get to the point in my life where I can do more extensive traveling or I can just be around and I could be hobbled by something that I could have prevented because I didn't take an interest in my health. It's like right now sitting on the reformer, my bum is going numb and my hamstrings are screaming at me and whatever because I don't stretch.
Yeah.
Because I don't come and enjoy classes like yours. I loved being on the reformer.
Oh, I'm so glad.
And you're a fantastic instructor, like honestly, and I've put this on LinkedIn and whatever. Honestly, Christie is one of the best instructors I've ever had because I was in your, what was it called?
You did a Zen Pilates class. Yeah. So it's kind of a mix of yoga-inspired movement therapy with Pilates.
And every single student within that class on either side of the room, right? Because you start out on the one side with the mats and the yoga poses to in here. You were attuned to every single student in that room. And the second you saw somebody out of alignment or requiring some assistive apparatus or what have you, you were on it. You didn't skip a beat. You would continue to instruct the class, but then you would go and reposition the person respectfully. I've had instructors just come over and manhandle me and I'd be like, you're in my bubble. You're so in my bubble. And you offered me, because of my back issues, some assistive apparatus that then made me feel far more empowered to continue with the class and to achieve without hurting myself. It was fantastic. It was just fantastic. But anyway, that's my little...
Thank you for that feedback.
You're welcome.
Words are sometimes hard to express, like the gratitude that I feel when people give me that positive feedback. And, you know, it's not to let it go to my head ego wise, but it's just, my job.
Make it part of your...
Yeah, it's learning to accept it, because it's always hard to accept compliments. At least for me, it always has been. I've always been kind of shy and awkward with it. But it means that I've done my job. When I get that kind of feedback from people,
very true.
I've done my job. That's what I'm here to do. You know, when you talk about, you know, being, you know, stiff with movement and sitting, and, you know, as you get older, you want to be able to travel and do the things you do, and not be stuck at home because you're in pain, your back hurts, you have, you know, this illness, that illness.
Degeneration and osteoporosis and all that other stuff that I could be... There's absolutely nothing preventing me other than my own disinterest. And I have trained with former Miss Olympias. I have trained at gyms. I have done hot yoga. There so far has been nothing that pries me out of my chair with my cup of tea and my book on a consistent basis. And I'll go at it for like 4 months. And then I'm like, yeah, I'm feeling good. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing, like, my teaching has evolved, and what I want to try and offer and accomplish with people has evolved over time.
You're amazingly certified as well. Like,
I've done a lot of training.
A lot.
And it's not because I have to, it's because I want to. I want to learn more. Like, I've been called a body geek, a body nerd, you know, because of the anatomy and stuff.
I've been called worse by better.
But, you know, I just feel like, you know, if you're our bodies are pretty amazing organisms, you know, and I don't, even with what I know, and I still don't, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means. I don't think of myself
as a discredit there.
But I think I say that just because I feel like there's so much more to learn. There's so much more for me to learn about movement. My specialty is movement. There's so much more for me to learn about movement and how the body works and functions. And one of the things that I've learned, or, you know, progressed through my teaching, is I really want people to be independent for as long as they possibly can in their life with a good quality of life. Because I've seen people in my life go through, you know, a lot of physical issues, disease that incapacitates them, mobility problems and that kind of stuff. And some things have come because of traumatic injury, which, you know, accidents happen, things, you know, sometimes are out of your control. But there's a lot within our control, and that is what we put in our body, what we exposed ourselves to, and how we move or don't move. In most cases, it's don't move.
Yeah, that would be direct correlation to the size of my gluteus maximus. You talk about disease. It's interesting because you talk about disease, and we're gonna talk about one of the things that Christie and I were talking about before. Is we both love to teach, and you have a really interesting way of looking at teaching when it comes to your students and why you learn so much and what have you, which I just love. But the word disease on its own, I think people don't realize it's actually 2 words.
Yeah, it's dis-ease.
Dis-ease, and it's you know, it's being in a state of unease. You know, and that I find fascinating. I just found out universe. I never thought of universe as 2 words, and universe means one song. I know.
I never thought of that.
I was watching a TED Talk, and I'm like, isn't that a beautiful way of looking at things? One song is what it actually means.
Yeah.
God,
those
really
Greeks
were smart people.
They were.
Yeah. So we'll jump a little bit, because what I wanted to definitely include is Christie is amazingly qualified to do a wide variety of things, but it's because of her passion for teaching and what she wants to accomplish with and for people that drives that, which I find amazing, and I'm much the same way. And we were also talking about, we'll swing this a little bit back into the entrepreneurship thing, because one of the groups I've created is Ballsy, and we were talking about that and how...
Sounds like a cool group.
It's fun. It's supposed to be basically it's not fun, that's a wrong way of putting it, but my whole goal was to create something that's not out there, because the groups that are out there, and this is where it connects to teaching, I find anyway, are not about sharing information in an open way, right? And that's where both of us, from a teaching perspective, somebody has a question for me, I don't care what it's about, I will sit there for as long as they want to keep asking questions, forgetting, of course, I should be charging them $60 an hour for a consultation, but, you know, whatever. Because I just love to teach other people.
Yeah.
And if you are open and inquisitive enough to have asked, then I am open and sharing enough to say, okay, here we go. I have to learn to manage that a little better.
Yeah. I feel the same way. Yeah. I feel the same way because I have people ask me all kinds of questions, especially, clients after class ask questions or even during class. And yeah, it's, and I take the time to address, their question, not because I feel like it's my job, but because I truly want to. And
it's almost altruistic, I would say. And I don't mean that in an ego way either. And I like how you talk about that. It's not teaching isn't an egocentric thing if you're doing it right. It just is part of who you are.
Yeah. And I feel like that's my job. That's just my job. It's what I do. I teach.
It's what you are.
Yeah. I guess I am a teacher. I am an instructor.
I started saying that I went to a storytelling conference or workshop, and it came around, right? So they went around the whole room and all these people are sharing these amazing things and whatever, and it got to me and they're like, so what's your story? I'm like, I have no freaking clue. I have
at least you're honest.
Yeah, I honestly, and Ralph Benmergie's sitting there and he's the one leading this particular exercise, and I'm like, yeah, I got nothing. And I hadn't honestly thought about what my story is. And I've talked about this before because it took me probably a good 3 weeks of sort of chewing on that. And I wrote it down somewhere. I can't remember the connection, but I was reading something or whatever, and all of a sudden it hit me out of the blue. I'm a teacher. That's what I do. That's why I've been a volunteer. That's why I was a Girl Guide leader. That's why I was a community guide or mentor. That's why I was an instructor for 2 years. I always come back to wanting, and I think somebody said to me, why do you always have to give people all the information? It can be a bit intense.
Sounds exactly like me.
Yeah. I'm like, well, because they asked, and like, don't they want to know? Because if you didn't want to know, why would you ask?
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't know when to stop. So I'm learning about that. But that was a really powerful moment where I now repeat to myself, I am a teacher. It's what I'm here to do. And so when you were sharing about that, and these were some of the things that Christie was saying, I said, so what do you like about teaching? And she said that she likes seeing the change in people. So taking all the certifications and skills and passion that she has for what she does, and then watching somebody not benefit, that sounds so weird, but benefit from them being open to learn and your ability to deliver that. And then about how much you love to learn and how that drives you wanting to then pass that on to other people, which is really cool.
Yeah. There's so many fascinating things. Like, like I'm very much a student. Like I loved school. But I think that geek the thing that I really liked about school, university in particular, is you could take a course on anything.
Yeah.
You can take anything you want to learn. There's a course about it, which to me, I'm like, where do I go? Because I want to learn about everything. Yeah. I mean, I do have particular interests, and I tend to stick with those. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm open to learning about anything. So I tend to get really excited about stuff. And I was like that as a kid too, actually. When I read something in a book, and I'm still like this, if I'm just reading something for fun, that I find really interesting, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And then, I'm looking
tell everybody.
I'm like, where's my husband? I got to tell him about this. Or, the next time I see a good friend who I know would be interested, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like that as a kid too.
Do you know how many of my conversations start with, so I was reading this book, and they're like, uh-huh.
Yeah. My thing lately is, okay, I have a question.
See? But I think that's what drives the entrepreneurial spirit. I think you can't be an entrepreneur if you are not curious in both the learning and the teaching component. I can't believe that you have success if you aren't into that. I think that's a fair statement to make. And so we'll transition out of how much we love teaching into the entrepreneurship thing, because there was a lesson learned by being an entrepreneur that we had talked about, because we've both had this experience that sort of came to us at the same time in the year anyway. And so you've been in this location for
6 years.
6 years. Yeah. And there's now a for rent sign on the window. So tell me about that transition, because you've gone from CarMax and teaching people about the environment to transitioning into successful Pilates instructor and business owner with a brick front to now transitioning out of that into something else. So let's talk about your for rent sign.
Yeah, it's a decision I made earlier in the year, and it was a tough decision to make, but I realized that it was the right one to do.
Yeah.
It's just,
you leaned into it.
The challenge. I mean, I didn't know what owning a business really meant until I owned one.
Yeah.
And you see all the different components that you're responsible for. I rent a storefront, so I have to pay rent. I have to, pay all my bills and everything else, which is normal. Everybody has bills to pay. But it's a little bit different when you have a business compared to, what you need to do at home.
Absolutely.
To have a roof over your head.
Absolutely.
Like, this is totally different. There's a huge responsibility. And this is my livelihood. This is my income.
Yeah.
So to try and, learn about and do everything you need to for the sales and the marketing, and then taking care of the, the books, the accounts receivable, accounts payable, and invoicing people. And I do my own bookkeeping because my operation is simple enough that, it doesn't take me a lot of time, to do that. So
it's not worth outsourcing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, which is great because it's something that I learned. It's a skill I have, and I know that skill is going to take me forward, and I can use it, in my next stage.
Yeah.
And I think being an entrepreneur and owning a business, it's given me that platform of wanting to learn more. I'm always wanting to learn, but at the same time, you also have to take what you learn and do something with it.
Yeah.
It's not just absorbing it like a sponge. You also need to do something constructive with it. And, I have done that to a certain degree. I've had clients with me from day one who've been with me since I had my home studio, which is amazing. And, I've had lots of people come and go, which is cool because, Pilates I know might not suit some people. They like the idea of it, but when they learn what it's about and they experience it, or maybe the way that I teach it, which is different from other people, which is cool, maybe that doesn't connect with them, and that's fine. My biggest thing,
it has to work for both sides.
Exactly, but my biggest thing with people is move. Do something to feel better about yourself, both mentally, physically, spiritually. Find what it is. For some people it's Pilates, for some people it's yoga. I don't connect as well with yoga as I do Pilates. And that's just me personally, but lots of people love it. People love Tai Chi, or they love going to the gym. It's whatever you want to do. I've always felt you have to find what you enjoy doing, otherwise you're not going to stick with it. But at the end of the day, I've learned through my movement journey and through my teaching journey is it's about moving your body at the end of the day.
So we'll take that story and we'll apply it to entrepreneurship, because now you are moving. I am moving on to a different stage.
Yeah. So over time, I've run the business myself. I have had a few people come in and help me teach classes, but I've always taught the bulk of the classes on top of running the studio, and I've basically just run out of steam. I'm tired.
Yeah. Well, that moves into the joy, because I was looking up. This connects. Marie Forleo is one of my favorite female entrepreneurs. She's got a massive following as far as these amazing videos that she gives on business development and what have you. But I was looking for, when do you decide to shut your business down? Right? What are the criteria and whatever? Because I closed a business in April. I closed my business center down. And that was really hard because it was only a year, which I know sounds weird. You think there would be less tragedy, if you will. But I almost feel like it didn't get a chance because I didn't know enough to know that it wasn't going to get a chance.
Yeah.
And so I'm now applying those lessons learned to my communications business, where I know I can use what I learned there. And we were talking about that before, and then the joy of failure, and how people either don't start something because they're afraid of failing, or they become so derailed by the notion of having failed that they don't move on to anything else. And I think we both agreed that there's joy in failure. There's opportunity in failure.
Yeah. And I don't even think of it, I don't think of anything I've ever done or any change I've made as failure. It's just change.
Exactly.
It's growth. It's learning something, and,
We've got about 2 minutes left, so we need to change the world in 2 minutes.
Yeah. Getting the joy, getting joy out of what you do. but learning something and then moving forward. So I learned, over time that, man, this is really hard what I'm doing, and I have no problem working hard.
But you also have to recognize when the joy is no longer there.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really strong thing to be able to do.
Exactly. And there's things I've been wanting to do with my business that I haven't been able to because of, lack of resources, mostly my time, in addition to financial stuff.
And tied to a brick and mortar.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'm not closing my business. I'm changing it. I'm
Pivoting.
Getting rid of my overhead.
Yeah.
Not having a storefront. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to be around. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to be teaching. There's other projects that I'm really excited to move on to. And
which is amazing.
Whether those projects actually come to fruition or not remains to be seen. Like I've changed personally. I'm very much a planner. I need to plan. And I actually I have a quasi plan, but I don't have things set in stone. But I actually think for me, where I am in my life right now,
that's what you need to do.
That's actually a good thing.
Good for you.
I've opened myself up to just take it as it comes. Yes, I do have some little plans in my head of things I'd like to try and do, but at the same time, I'm kind of opening myself up to, whatever is going to come my way.
To saying yes.
Yeah, and that's been a learning experience, is getting to the point where I'm able to do that, which is actually really cool. Because I've always I know what I want, and I've always gone after it.
I'm a list maker, so I'm with you.
So
I like to know what's coming.
And at this point, I kind of know, or I have some ideas of what I want, but I also feel a little lost too, which is cool. Everybody's going to go through that in their life. And for me, it's my career, my business is going through a transition and a change, which is cool. It's like an evolution, which, kind of, connects back to, the natural environment, evolving.
And balance. You're finding your balance again. Because I think whenever you go through such a monumental change, such as shutting down a business, I think your equilibrium gets a little funked up. And it's finding that again.
Yeah.
Everybody works better in, it's a medical term and it's gone right out of my head. But anyway, you work better when everything's in balance. And that's internal, external. It's when your joy matches your passion, which are two different things. And it's when you recognize that that's no longer happening and you make that hard decision. I was quite surprised at how little there was on when you should decide to shut down your business. And I watch so many people go way beyond what they should because it's their business and they built it and whatever. And believe me, I get that. Believe me, I have been there. I built At My Office Canada and put it all together and did all of that. It sucked disco balls when I had to shut it down. Yeah. But it was time.
And
it wasn't worth going into more stress and debt just to make it continue. But
and I'm feeling, it's an emotional time for me because I know I've accomplished some really cool stuff. I'm the only Pilates studio in town, and you'd think, well, why wouldn't you stay open? You're the only one. It's business guaranteed, but it's not that simple. There's a lot of competition out there, and just overall, what I'm changing is what I'm teaching is changing. I'm finding I'm getting away from teaching Pilates and I'm teaching more restorative movement and just how to move in your everyday, which is something that I've taught my clients from day one, is how can you get more movement into your everyday? And that's actually what I want to start teaching people to do.
And that's where your success is going to be.
Because to me, it makes more sense. I've always said, get outside your exercise box. Pilates takes you outside of that exercise box that we all have, that idea of, you have to carve out an hour here, an hour there, a couple times a week. That's not realistic, and it's actually not healthy for us. And research has proven that if you have a sedentary job, going to the gym 3 hours a week does not counterbalance. It doesn't help you with the health problems you're going to have from being sedentary. And so it's for me now, it's all about moving more in your everyday life. And I've been inspired by many other amazing movement specialists out there that I've learned from, and I've experimented in my own body and life, how to bring more movement into your everyday life. And that's what I'm doing. And I'm finding success with that in many different ways.
Cool.
And that's what I want to now pass on to people, is let's take it to the next step. And that's how I think of me going with my business and me going where I want to personally, but also with the clients that I serve. It's what else can I do for them? I want to take them to the next step, because there's more than just coming to a class.
That's very true. And our next step is that we're going to have to say goodbye.
Aw.
I know.
Well,
But we can do it again.
thank you for having me.
You're
This
very
is a
welcome.
lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun, and I hope what I tend to do will wrap. Sorry. The summary is: learn all you can. Don't be afraid to share and teach others what you know. Failure is movement, and movement is always positive. So that's who we are. Christie Ellinger, thank you so much. Pilates teacher extraordinaire, movement guru, body geek. She's really freaky about feet too, but we'll talk about that another time. It's a good way. It's a good foot freak, but it's plant your feet. What is that you say? Shake hands with your feet.
Yes. We'll go over the foot handshake some other time.
Some other time. Anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. I hope you have a fantastic day. Don't forget to move more, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Say bye-bye, Christy.
Bye-bye.